We are an economy without a plan. We have had an economy that is just simply where our government is choosing to deliver three things: tax cuts that aren't working. We've now had $23 billion of tax cuts over two budgets, and it's still not working. Public sector cuts, 2 rounds of public sector cuts in the past two budgets, it's not working. Both of these things are knocking the stuffing out of the economy. The confidence is going in the economy. And we're pinning all of our hopes on the third, which is that interest rates get cut by the Reserve Bank sufficiently so that we start to see some growth and some warmth in the New Zealand economy. Everyone feels a bit more money in their pockets and we start again. This is not a sustainable economic plan. This is just simply going back to where we were in 2015. Kia ora koutou, and a warm welcome to episode 22 of Locked Out with Craig Renney. By day, I'm the economist and director of policy at the New Zealand Council of Trade Unions. But by night, this podcast looks at the numbers in New Zealand and asks the hard questions so that you can too. We hope that you're enjoying the show and what we do here at Locked Out. If you like the analysis that you hear in the show and think that others would do too, then please recommend us to your friends or even your enemies. Also, give us a recommendation wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps get the word out. Here at Locked Out, we're always really interested in what our viewers and listeners want to know. If it's making you say 10,000 fewer jobs in just 3 months, you can be in no doubt we are too. So get in touch. I'm on X, Blue Sky, and on Substack. We want to hear how we can help you better understand what's really going on and how you can navigate the numbers being thrown around by politicians and experts alike. Now, today is a very special day. Today, GDP numbers came out for the June quarter. Sometimes in life, it's really difficult not to say, "We told you so." So I'm trying desperately not to say "we told you so." But GDP fell 0.9% over the past 3 months. Now, that's a pretty catastrophic fall by anyone's measure. The Reserve Bank was forecasting a fall. It was forecasting a fall of minus 0.3%. So this is 3 times as bad as the Reserve Bank's fall. Westpac and ASB and ANZ were all forecasting falls of 0.4%. So this is more than twice as bad as the private banks had been suggesting. The Treasury at the last budget was forecasting growth at this point of 0.7%. What that means is that the economy is 1.6% worse off than the Treasury was forecasting in May of last year. That might not sound like a lot. In economic terms, that is billions and billions and billions of dollars that we are away from where we were forecast to be. And that is billions of dollars of tax revenue the government will not be getting because the economy is smaller. Now, if this was one fall in one particular sector, we could blame one thing. So, for example, if there was a giant shortage in concrete, then you could say, okay, construction fell a lot, but everything else is okay. That's not the case here. GDP fell in 10 out of 16 industry sectors. Manufacturing fell 3.5% in just 3 months. Let's think about that for a second, right? This is just 3 months of data. 3.5%. If you compound that over 4 quarters, that would be a manufacturing sector that would be just a little under 15% smaller by the end of the year if the fall carried on as it does now. Mining fell 4.1% in 3 months. Retail fell, financial services fell, business services fell, healthcare and social assistance fell. The darling of the New Zealand economy, the thing that's been keeping us going, agriculture, forestry and fishing, also fell. And so across the past 15 months, 5 quarters, the economy has been in decline for 3 of those quarters, 9 months. So this isn't just due to one-off factors such as tariffs or other changes. This is essentially an economy with no plan and no direction. Quarterly GDP per capita fell back into the red. The government made much of the past couple of quarters of GDP per capita starting to grow after essentially 2 years of continued declines in quarterly GDP. It's now back at a level lower than it was in 2021, even after adjusting for inflation. Again, this is an economy with no plan and no direction. There aren't green shoots. There's just the bottom of the cliff. And we're bouncing up and down on the bottom of the cliff. And we found in this quarter a new trough, a new chasm to fall into. Now, again, it brings me no joy to say this because these are real people's lives. These are real jobs, real businesses going to the wall. But Miss Willis, the Minister of Finance, in her press release today, which must have been a very difficult press release to have to write, said that Trump's tariffs were to blame for much of this and global uncertainty was to blame for much of this. And it may well have contributed. However, there's one data point which my friend Ed Miller was pointing out to me today on Twitter. The year ended June 2025, so the same period as this data, we saw record exports to the US, up 79% since 2021. Those same tariffs that the Minister of Finance is blaming clearly aren't hurting our exports there right now. So they can't be to blame for this. And if we look at some other areas, we can see again, there are some real challenges in the economy. Business investment fell in plant, in machinery, in transport equipment. Residential construction, which is a leading indicator of growth in the economy, fell 1.9%. Non-residential construction also fell. So businesses aren't investing either in new residential buildings or in offices, in factories or other things. Again, why is that important? Because these lead indicators tell you where growth might be happening in the future. Companies buy plant and equipment, they build new factories before you see the output and therefore the GDP growing. If the opposite is happening, it doesn't suggest that you're going to see strong GDP growth in the future. It suggests, again, you're going to see weaker GDP growth in the future. Now, at this point, I could carry on with a tale of woe. My story essentially is this. Things will get better, but they will only get better because they literally cannot get any worse. Things will get better because we have hit absolute rock bottom. We are an economy without a plan. We have had an economy that is just simply where our government is choosing to deliver 3 things. Tax cuts that aren't working. We've now had $23 billion of tax cuts over 2 budgets, and it's still not working. Public sector cuts, 2 rounds of public sector cuts in the past 2 budgets, it's not working. Both of these things are knocking the stuffing out of the economy. The confidence is going in the economy. And we're pinning all of our hopes on the third, which is that interest rates get cut by the Reserve Bank sufficiently so that we start to see some growth and some warmth in the New Zealand economy. Everyone feels a bit more money in their pockets and we start again. This is not a sustainable economic plan. This is just simply going back to where we were in 2015. This is not an economic strategy for New Zealand for the future. This is a hope. And the data that we have today is just but one part, a very visible part, but just but one part of that lack of a strategy. If we look, for example, the number of people unemployed in New Zealand, 5.2%, that's 158,000 people unemployed. The number of people underutilized, so these are people who want more hours, can't get it, want to be in work, can't be, broke the 400,000 barrier for the first time in New Zealand. The percentage of working people on job seekers in New Zealand is 6.6% and rising. There are forecast to be 50,000 more people on job seekers by the end of this term of government than there were when it started. The government has a target to take 50,000 people off job seekers. And when those people are on job seekers, their length of time is stretching into the future. The number of people who are spending 3 to 6 months on job seekers has gone from 15.3 to 21.3%. And the number of people on 6 months to 1 year on job seekers has gone from 17.5% to 22.5%. Job adverts are down 7.6% annually. Inflation, which is the other side of this equation. Can you remember the government was elected on a story of having a laser-like focus on the cost of living. Earlier this week, we saw selected price index data. Now, rents aren't going up as quickly as they were. Fair play. That's a sign that nobody has any money in their pocket and landlords are having to respond. Food prices are up 5%. Electricity prices are up 11.4%. Meat prices are up 9%. The minimum wage is up 1.5%. Now, when we look for certain indicators in the economy of stress, white sliced loaves are one of those things we look at because they're the most basic good. They're the thing that when consumers trade down, that's the very last thing they will trade down to is white sliced bread. White sliced bread in New Zealand is up 41.7% annually. So we've got an economy that's failing in terms of the cost of living pressures. If we exclude petrol, inflation is 3.2%, and core inflation in places like food is up well above those particular levels. Unemployment is up. People having worked part-time, not getting the hours that they want, is at record levels. Youth unemployment is up. Māori unemployment is 10%. Pacifica unemployment is 12.1%. And today, GDP is telling us what the rest of the indicators are telling us. We have a sick economy, and the medicine that's been given to that economy in the form of tax cuts, in the form of public sector cuts, and in terms of continuously telling everyone that that they shouldn't have any confidence in the future, that the government isn't coming to help, that the government isn't going to do anything, is making the patient worse. GDP fell by 0.9%. We should be asking ourselves now, where do we go from here? The labour cost index, wages, rose by 2.4%. That's below inflation, 2.7%. 51% of workers didn't receive a pay rise at all or got less than 2%, meaning they're seeing real terms pay cuts overall. We've had 2 years of the minimum wage being cut in real terms. Child poverty indicators are now heading in the wrong direction. If there was a dashboard in front of us and it had indicators of the economy, of things working or things not working, all the red lights are indicating the plan is not working. And not only is the plan not working, we're heading backwards at a rate of knots, and there is no plan for the future. So, short story today, because we're still chewing our way through this data. We'll have fresh unemployment data, fresh jobs data in 2 weeks' time. But GDP numbers today should be the last signal for this government. It should be the last sign that it needs to change track, that the economic plan needs to change. Because if it doesn't, we seem doomed to go round and round this circle of a lack of investment, leading to a lack of jobs, leading to a lack of consumption, which slows the economy, which means we don't create the grounds for investment, which means we don't create the jobs, which means we don't have the consumption, which means we go backwards again. Remember, 9 out of the past 15 months in New Zealand, our economy has been going backwards. This is not a one-off event. This is not some kind of one-off factor which is sort of landed from space, and there's very little that we can do about it. This is as a consequence of the actions or inactions of the government. And if we look overseas, we see economies that are growing. We see economies that are starting to pick up strength again. Unemployment in Australia is 4.2%. It has an economy that is growing. Even that previous basket case that was the UK economy is growing again. The economy in the US is growing. For how much longer, we don't know, but it's currently growing right now. It's only New Zealand and only the lane that we have plowed here, that we have chosen, that is taking us in our direction. And we need to stop. We need to see change, because if we don't, we're going to make this worse and we're going to harm more families. And I give you this as an example. This week saw the closure of the Tokoroa plywood plant from Carter Holt Harvey, with a loss of potentially 100 jobs. This is on top of more than 130 jobs that have been lost at the OG fibre plant in the same town. We're not seeing any positive economic news or action to support these communities. We've got energy prices that appear to be out of control. We've got an economy on its knees and no plan to tackle it. So, viewers, listeners, my plea to you is this. We need to change track. We have about 400 days to the next election. And we can't allow people to tell us that green shoots in the future are a reason to continue with where we are. This is called the investment fallacy. Because we've got to where we are, because we've made so many sacrifices to get where we are, then we shouldn't sacrifice those sacrifices. When we're doing the wrong thing, we should stop doing the wrong thing and start doing the right thing, which is what those other countries have done. And we need to invest in the New Zealand economy, need to invest in that workforce that needs some jobs, needs some help, because right now it's not getting any. So thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked Out podcast. We hope that you found it in parts maddening and in parts enlightening. And today, I really hope you focus on the maddening part. If you've enjoyed the show, please give us a review or a recommendation on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you download. Locked Out looks forward to talking with you more next week, where hopefully we'll have some better news, where hopefully we'll have some better stories, but none of that will happen unless we all agree that we're going to need to see that change. Don't work too hard. Thank you so much for listening, and goodbye.